it is hard to just be authentically yourself. But yeah, I suppose maybe if they just don't have the courage to kind of be themselves or put their own sort of spin on things, and they just stay being safe.
Hi, I'm Beth Bieske, the founder of More Time to Design and your host of the Design Dialogues podcast. I've been a designer for the last 12 years and I've run my own studio for 5. And I know how hard it is to run a successful business. You not only need to be great at designing, but you need to be great at all the other things as well. I created More Time to Design, a software platform to help designers run efficient studios, and I've created the Design Dialogue podcast to help us all learn together. Each week, we will meet professionals who are at the top of their game doing things that help us run our studios. We'll have conversations with social media managers, interior design mentors, copywriters, stylists, photographers, suppliers, and also designers who have been in the game for a long time and who have such a wealth of knowledge to share. I hope that each week you feel inspired and informed at the end of each of our design dialogues. So join me for the Design Dialogue podcast. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Design Dialogues podcast. This week I am joined by Kate Lawrence from Kate Lawrence Interiors. Hi Kate.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining me. So I love to start all of my dialogues by finding out, what can you see out your window today?
Well, today nothing very pretty, because normally I'm looking at like beautiful blue sky and I have some palm trees, but so that's the positive. But then what I'm actually looking at is grey sky and my old house, which is a project that I'm going to be doing this year. So I'm looking at, it in its worst state, imagining what it's going to look like eventually. But
yes, I know. We were just saying we're recording this in kind of the start of May, and it feels like we've skipped autumn and we've gone straight to winter today. So it's not the most pleasant of days.
It's gloomy.
So I would love to hear a little bit about your business and how you got started in interior design.
Yeah. So how I started in interior design was quite like a natural progression, I guess. Yeah. I had been renovating with who was my partner and my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband. And we just, we loved kind of like looking on real estate and finding properties that we thought we could like bring back to life. And we loved doing that together. So we were just doing that as a hobby, and I was working in media. So I'd already been to uni, studied media communications, worked in media, and was doing that on the side. And I think it was kind of, once I started doing the renovations and I started to really think, this is probably like the avenue that I would like to go down. But I've just done a degree. I've just started working. Like, oh my gosh, what have I done? So I eventually made the decision that I was going to go back and study. And it was just something for me that I felt like if I wanted to make this a real thing, then I wanted to have like that kind of qualification behind me, and I wanted to have learned some of the more technical skills. So I decided to leave my full-time job, go back and study, and then I just worked in retail while studying. And that's kind of where I started. And after a couple of years, I finished, and then I guess my business was born. So
And did you always know that you wanted to work for yourself?
Yeah, so I guess that's where things have kind of changed for me a little bit. When I decided to study, it was always with the thought in mind that I was studying so I could do my own projects and keep doing our own developments and, live this dream life of only, only designing and building for yourself. However, after finishing, it was kind of just like jobs would come to me from friends or someone being like, oh, do you think you could help this person out? Or, and then I kind of started to build up an actual business and, clients that weren't just myself. And I guess I gained confidence from that. So maybe I felt like at the beginning I was a little less confident. And so I was like, oh, I'm happy to do it for myself because it's wrong, it's just me. But then naturally, when you start working on jobs and you get actual experience, seeing things, actually under construction, I then realized, oh, I do actually like working with people, and it is really nice to see and help people bring their kind of like dreams to life. So
Yeah, wow.
yeah.
And something that comes up in so many of these conversations is how interior design is a second or third or fourth career for people.
Yeah.
And I think I love hearing about the skills, like those transferable skills that you have from your first career that
Yeah.
you have been able to bring into interior design. Because I think people who are thinking about maybe making a switch, they're
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, I'll be starting from scratch. I'll like be right from the bottom kind of thing. What
Yeah.
are some of those transferable skills that you think you've brought across from your time in media?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's actually a question I get asked a lot too from people who are wanting to leave full-time jobs. Like
Yeah.
everyone seems to say, oh, I wish I'd studied
Yeah.
interior design. It's like it's quite a dream job, I guess, for some people.
Yeah.
Um, and so whenever people are asking me about it, I'm like, do it. Like it has its moments, trust me, like but all in all, I think it's an amazing career. Those skills, I think you take something from every single job that you do. So with interiors, yeah, it's amazing that you can make a space look great and you might have a really good eye, but when you're working with clients, you have to actually be able to communicate, create really beautiful relationships. They need to trust you. So I feel like it's just having skills working with people. So, my first job was in media and I had clients and I worked in a team. So it's like I took those skills and I built confidence in that industry. And then I was able to kind of use those skills in my new role, which is dealing with all different types of people, having to get to know them, having to really understand what they're wanting. And I think that's something that maybe people don't realize is a really good skill to have is communication, because you can be uber talented and you can put all these amazing things and ideas onto paper, but if you can't effectively communicate that, then your client isn't going to trust you in the process. So I feel
Yeah.
like it's just as much about being able to kind of like build relationships as well as, create beautiful designs. But I think,
Yeah. And that's so important. Like it comes up, I mean, that communication and building relationships, I think if I could pinpoint a common thread to all of these episodes, it comes down to that. And it's communicating on a technical level with trades and all that kind of stuff, but being able to manage that relationship with the client and communicating to them in a way that they feel confident about what they're doing is so key.
yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Your interiors are, you just look at them and you feel calm. It's amazing what you're able to achieve. Talk to me a little bit about how you work with such a pared back color palette and material palette. Let's really geek out a little bit on this, because there would be so many designers who are like, I love that, but I can't quite get there with it just, how do I do it kind of thing. So talk to me about, I suppose, your design process a little bit. Um, you know, for everyone at home that's listening, Kate's background is just serene neutrals. Like there's layered neutrals. It's just beautiful. How do you talk me through your process for building those material palettes?
Yeah. Well, thank you firstly. Thank you. It's funny, isn't it? Because when I first started, my business and trying to learn my style, I guess, I was so worried that it was too pared back and that I was like, I used to like almost say to myself, oh, is it because, you're boring or like not, don't have enough kind of like creativity to be able to use different colors. And then I had
Yeah.
this one client and she had, I would say my style is her style, and she almost helped bring out my style, which was just owning the fact that I'm happy with less is more.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's sort of the approach I take. If I look at materials or I have an idea, so let's just say I'm designing a kitchen, I always go in with the approach of less is more. Like, don't try and put so many ideas in. It shouldn't ever be overwhelming.
Mm.
your materials should complement each other. They shouldn't be competing with each other. So if you decide you want to have, beautiful timber cabinetry, well, do you need a really busy stone, or is the cabinetry kind of the hero and the stone is just complementing it? So
Mm.
I don't like to have too many big features. It's like if I have one, then that's the hero, and then everything else should just complement it. And I normally like to kind of only use maybe 3 materials. Again, just the simple approach of less is more, which is cliche, but I feel like that's kind of how I've always tried to design spaces.
Yeah, and it's funny, interesting. You bring up the word niche, which is also a really common thing that comes up in these episodes around, I think, when designers first start. And I think so many people are guilty of this, is if they're thinking of, if I go too niche, then I won't have enough clients.
Yeah.
And I think there would be like a hesitation to go, like, sometimes a style is a niche, which I would say you definitely fall into that. Was that something that you were kind of like, it just, like, I imagine that you would feel almost uncomfortable with lots of color and all that kind of stuff. Like, how would you go? Like, was it just about, this is what I feel comfortable with, I cannot really work outside of that because it just doesn't sit with me, kind of thing?
It's funny because I think now when you put work out, you start to get similar clients that come to you.
Yes.
And now I'm actually working on a job at the moment, and this client is a bit more out there. They have, we're gonna have a little bit more fun with some of the materials, and I actually love it because I've kind of realized that I can adopt the same principles of what I've had in all my designs.
Yeah.
I can do it with color. So it might be the kitchen might be green, but it will still be pared back because I might just have, again, three materials. So I'm hoping that when you see that design, you'd go, oh, wow, Kate went all out with color, but it's still very much, it still has my mark on it.
Yeah, it's your DNA is still all over it, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I always think that's it's such a beautiful evolution of a designer. Like, I think you kind of get comfortable, and then quite often it is a client that kind of pushes the envelope a little bit for you. I know, um similarly, like, Catherine from the Stables kind of said the same thing. Like, she's got a very unique aesthetic.
yeah,
And as you said, like, the more projects you put out, you get more clients that want that. Like, it's kind of this self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? But
yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
yeah, but then, like, she's had clients that have really pushed her with color, and it's still her project. It's still got her DNA in it, kind of thing. But it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And do you like that? Like, do you like being kind of challenged by the clients?
Yeah, I do. I actually think um, more people, particularly when you're first starting, it's don't don't feel like if your clients have an opinion that you're not worthy, but you don't know enough. Or I love all my clients because I feel like they all teach me something, or I'll take away something from every single project. And it might be something as simple as, oh, we had this kitchen before and this was in it and it was so practical. And I'll be
Yeah.
like, oh wow, I wouldn't have even thought of that. That's an amazing idea. And then I'll use that in, another project. Like, here's
Yeah.
a practical solution you could have in your kitchen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I welcome clients' opinions and ideas. Obviously, I like to lead it, and I hope that they trust me. But I feel like, yeah, often if you're open to listening and taking things on, you can take so much away from clients, and you can really be challenged by them, and you grow from that challenge. Which is, yeah, I would hate to just sit still and just be doing the same thing over and over. And eventually you would almost see, I feel like your work would maybe start to quiet down, because if you're just doing the same thing, things change, trends change, material, the things that people like,
Mm.
that'll changes. So if you became so stuck in what you were doing, then I feel like eventually that would catch up to you.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, so true. So true. So, I know that like you are a big champion of young designers and kind of helping people kind of work out how to get into the industry and all that kind of stuff. What are some of the things that you see young designers doing that you kind of like, oh, that's a bit of a misstep. Like, I wouldn't like maybe try something different.
Oh, that's a good question. Ooh, what do I see them doing? Sorry, I've got incense lit and it's like flying by. So just then I went like that. It looked like I was ushering someone off. Um, I maybe like trying to mimic someone, like mimic people too much, like rather
Yeah.
than just like, and that's really hard, isn't it, these days? Because there's so many images out there. There's Pinterest, there's Instagram. So it is hard to just be authentically yourself. But yeah, try, I suppose maybe if they just don't have the courage to kind of be themselves or put their own sort of spin on things and they just stay being safe. Um, but other than that, like I don't really notice, I don't know, I don't really notice things that I'm like, oh, like why are they doing that?
That's good. That's good.
I feel like
But
I
I
just,
I
yeah.
think one of the other things that I would love to get your take on is so, and kind of this kind of comes back to you having a very specific style and aesthetic. When designers are first starting out, you everyone's guilty of going, I'll just do that work kind of thing, like it comes along, and they might not, it might not be your ideal client kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you think new designers can kind of balance that out where they're trying to, take everyone's advice, have a niche, work out your style, like be confident in your style, but also where, you're not working with clients who have come to you because of that style? How do you balance that out?
Yeah, and I think that is a really hard thing for designers that are first starting out, and I've been through that as well. I mean, I was obviously fortunate enough to be doing my own projects, so I could put my spin on things. So
Mm,
I'm very aware that I am a rarer case that I was fortunate enough to do that. But I've been there where you take on anything because at the end of the day, you want work, you need money. So if someone, needs a designer and they just want to use a friend's friend, then you put your hand up and you do it.
yeah.
Um, I did a lot of jobs that I didn't necessarily put out there into, the Instagram world. So
Yeah.
I would show things that I wanted people to see. So and life sometimes is a bit of smoke and mirrors, and I
Yeah.
feel like I very much curated my Instagram feed and my website to look how I want it to look, so I attract the right people. And I think, you might not have jobs coming in, but like I invested all of my money into photography starting out. I only ever used professional photographers, and I was happy to spend that money because I feel like I then got the money back from getting a new client.
Mm,
Again, if you haven't had the job to be able to photograph, then that's hard. But look at avenues like, model something on SketchUp and pay to have it rendered. Like
yeah.
there's, that might be expensive, yes, but using a photographer is expensive. So, but if you don't have the job, then you've got to find a way to put your work out there and
Yeah.
show what you can do. So if I was starting again and I didn't have projects of my own to be able to showcase my style, then that is where I'd be spending my money. I would design fake houses and bathrooms and kitchens and I would render it and I would pay someone to do it and I would put it out there on my socials. I'd take photos of, flat lays where I'm showing you what materials I'm putting together. I would honestly bluff my way through to look like I had proper jobs, proper clients, because who cares? Like I'm showing you what I can do. None of it's fake. It's just, it's not under construction.
Yeah. And I think it's so refreshing to hear because I think sometimes it's not as apparent how much is smoke and mirrors. Even for bigger firms that have been around for a long time, everything you see on Instagram is not as it appears always in real life. But I love that advice of kind of like a finished project is not the only way of showcasing what you are capable of and what your style is, and also kind of what clients you are working on doesn't necessarily, not every client needs to make it to Instagram kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
and I think as well, like even for those clients that the project might not be Instagram worthy,
Mm.
the visit to the tile shop, the visit to, you know, whatever it is, that is all ways that you can showcase what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Visiting suppliers, even if you go on their site when it's under construction, just showing, yourself around the site or
Yeah.
just updates. There's just so many ways you can kind of like put your work out there without and still curate it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I just think people need to think outside the box a little bit because unfortunately it's really hard to land clients when you don't have any work to show.
Yeah.
And you don't have a family friend whose house you can do or a parent, whose kitchen you can renovate. So yeah, I do think you just need to think outside the box a little, the square. I don't know what that I'm notorious for saying things wrong.
Oh, same. There's
My
one in particular that I get wrong all the time, and like my husband finds it hilarious, and I'm gonna say it completely wrong now. It's like half a dozen of six of something, and he's like,
Oh.
"What?" The first time I said it, he's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And I'm like, "What is that saying?" And now it's just this running joke kind of thing. So
That's
yeah,
so
I'm
yeah,
notoriously bad
my
at
husband writes notes in his phone of things that I say wrong, but I say them normally like with so much conviction that I'm like,
Yeah, oh, totally. I think I was like, I didn't even realize I was saying it wrong. Yeah, no.
Yeah, sorry, I don't even remember what I was saying now. But yeah, I think there is ways to look like you have work and show that you are really talented. So
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there.
oh, it's so common, isn't it? It's like every single thing is smoke and mirrors in
Yeah.
this world. Um, and that's okay. But yeah, as you said, some of these big firms, there would be, jobs that they probably don't like, or,
Yeah.
there's products that you might use that you're like, oh, that looks way better in a photo than it did in real life. So like
Yeah.
that's going to happen. It's just life.
Yeah. So you've touched on this already, but you have been your own client and you've done it previously and you're about to start. Are you about to start or you've started a new project on your own home?
Yeah.
Now, there will be many designers who are like, oh, that's my dream to just develop properties or whatever it is. How do you manage being your own client?
Yeah, it's tricky because you see so many things from doing other client projects that you're like, oh, I don't know, you just put like this big expectation on yourself
Yeah.
that it has to be different and it has to be amazing. And it's like at the end of the day, there's only so much stone in the world, there's only so many tile shapes. But yeah, I think that's the part that I struggle with the most is I put a lot of pressure on myself that I want it to be different. And I've got, one opportunity and I'm like, I really want to nail it. But my advice would be, and honestly, I haven't always lived by this advice, but I'm trying to with this project, is treat yourself like you would your client. So the same process, do a mood board. If you have a questionnaire, answer your own questionnaire, and try and stay on track like you would with a client.
Mm.
Because otherwise I just feel like you'd be building and you wouldn't have even finished designing it because you're kind of just doing things on the go. That's what I'm trying to do for myself. So I have done the mood board. I'm doing the designs and, I will keep coming back to it and I will refine it because a new idea will pop into my head. But I think don't overcomplicate it and stick with, I suppose, try kind of listen to your gut because it shouldn't be something different like than
Yeah.
what you
And
want
have
to.
you renovated your own, like have you done a project in between the initial project that got you into interior design and this one?
Yeah, so I've done it quite a few projects.
Mm.
So I've the first project that we did was a renovation on an apartment, and then after that we did a renovation on another apartment, and then a townhouse, and then we've developed 2 duplexes. So we've done a few, and now I'm doing and back to renovating. So I did developing, which was great, different. I love renovating.
I was just going to ask, like, which side of that coin do you sit on in terms of, because some people really don't love renovating. They love the clean palette, the clear
starting
slate,
again.
just
Yeah.
of building?
Yeah, I think like building was amazing and it's brand new. It's kind of like you can do whatever you want,
Yeah.
to an extent. But renovating, I think there's something so creative about that because it's like you have to go in there and go, how can we bring this back to life? What can we do? And that's why Luke, my husband, and I loved it to begin with. So it was nice to kind of like go back to our roots and um yeah, and just like remind myself why I started and why I loved it because I feel like along the way you do sometimes lose sight of it and you have moments where you're like, oh, this is so tiring. Like, do I even like this anymore?
Yeah.
But yeah, doing the designs for this renovation, it's been really fun and like I'm so excited to see it kind of transform and it's so satisfying.
And how is that relationship with your husband? So you're obviously got some very strong design ideas, I imagine.
Yeah.
Does he kind of just come along for the ride, or is he as involved as you are?
Yeah, so I definitely have like opinions with certain things that I'm like, no, that would look terrible. What are you talking about? But I also think he's not a trade, he plays football, so nothing to do with building, but um, he's naturally very creative.
Yeah.
So I really respect his opinion, and I feel like he's actually a lot stronger in certain areas than me. He's got amazing like spatial, like planning, and he does often have like random little ideas that I'm like, that's a good one. I'll take that. Um, but people are always like, oh, it's just Kate, and I'm like, it's so funny because it's so wrong. Like
Yeah.
he is obsessed with me, but mine's my full-time job and his is a passion. Um, so no, I'm lucky. I actually rely on him a lot, particularly for like making sure things actually work
Yeah.
rather than just like putting it on the plans and then you get to construction, you're like, that doesn't spatially, that doesn't really work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And do you use your projects as a kind of experiment for things that you kind of want to try out on a client, but you're not quite sure if it'll work? So do you use your own homes as kind of little experimental grounds?
Oh yeah, definitely. Which I think that was kind of like a little bit of an advantage for me, particularly when I was studying. I didn't realize how much I knew about interiors and building and
Mm,
trades because I'd been doing it. And I just kind of thought, oh yeah, like I didn't think anything of it. But then when I was around it, I was like, oh, I actually do know a lot about, certain materials or how things wear. But I love using myself as an experiment because then I can say, like, honestly, don't do that. I've done it and it doesn't wear well, or I've been talking a lot about on my Instagram about like micro cement, which
yeah.
everyone's using at the moment. And we did it in our bathrooms a couple of years ago, and I loved it. I love it. I think it's such a great product if done by the right applicator. So again, that was me testing, like me being the test dummy and being able to vouch for it or be like, avoid.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting actually, because I did see you talking about micro cement, and I have just finished off a project with it. And it's an amazing product. Really need to have the right person to install it.
Okay.
Um, Massive disclaimer on that.
Yeah.
Um, but
And
I
not,
think
not cheap at all.
no, not cheap at all. But I think it's really great that you can kind of give your client that confidence to kind of go, I've used it, I know the pitfalls of it, especially for a product that it's like, I think it's like double the price of tiling or something
Yeah.
like that. Like it's really not an inexpensive option. Um, do your clients kind of really react in a positive way to that?
Yeah, I think so because I think, as you just said, it gives them confidence because you can say, oh, I use this on a project or in my own home or my own development. And then it instantly gives them confidence. And sometimes, like, it's great, obviously, but like I find with clients, they're calling me all the time about little things that the builder might have said to do, or they're like, "Oh, Kate, what do you think about this? Or should we do this?" And it's like, sometimes I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is exhausting." But in the same like token, it's so nice that they have so much trust in you
Yeah.
because that just shows you that you've built a really good relationship with them. So yeah, I really like it in that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are there things that you're looking forward to trying out in this new build?
Yeah, yes, always. This house is like a house that I want to stay in for a long time. I say like forever, but who knows with Luke and I. Um, but it would take a lot for me to move from this house. So I am trying to be, I want things that are going to, be timeless. Everyone says that.
Yeah.
Everything dates, but I I don't want to just do things just as a trend. I don't really like trends as such, but yeah, I'm excited mainly for the joinery. I want to put
Yeah.
like a bit more detail into a lot of the pieces. Um, and I am going to use a lot of like natural, like Moroccan tiles, which I've used before, but I want to use more of them in different ways. Um, yeah, I think it will still look like a me house, but
Yeah.
just a little bit, I can push things because it's myself rather than
Yeah.
client. Yeah. So
And where do you like joinery is always such an interesting thing. Where do you find inspiration for those details that you're wanting to put in?
yeah, I think I love looking at suppliers. That's one thing I kind of feel like I would say to designers that are starting out is like, and you would know yourself, it's like product knowledge is everything.
Mm.
I love knowing about all new products. I feel like you get inspiration from that. You can see new things that are coming in and how you can use them. So like I I look to suppliers for inspiration with new products, but then also just online. There's so many things online. Sometimes I'm like, oh, it's too much. But yeah, I just like if I'm on Pinterest, I go from like I'll click on one image and it links me to another. It links me to a website article from overseas. I read the article. I click onto the person that they've linked into and you just like, you can
Down
research.
the rabbit hole.
Yeah, down the rabbit hole for hours and I save things and memory, like my banks in my mind. So yeah, I would say largely online inspiration. But yeah, I think I like Pinterest. I hate saying that I like Pinterest because sometimes it's so frustrating, particularly with clients. But I do like it because it can connect you to a lots of overseas designers.
Mm.
And yeah, it's nice to see things that you might not have seen before.
Yeah, how awesome. I mean, yeah, I like Pinterest too
Where,
kind of thing, but
where did you look?
I definitely sometimes say to clients to disconnect from it. I'm like, we've pinned enough now. Step
Me
back.
too. Yeah, I'm
Step
like,
back.
delete your Pinterest board.
Yeah.
We've seen it all. Yeah, it's so good. It's like it's so good and so bad all at once.
Yeah. So obviously your own home is a big thing for the next 12 months, but what else are you looking forward to in your business over the next 12 months?
I think seeing like a lot of the projects that I've been working on be finished. So it's like you're just involved in these projects for such a long time. It's like you start and then, 2 years passes and it's just under construction. So there's a lot of jobs that I've worked on, over a year ago and they're in construction now. So I think it's going to be really nice to see those finish.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get nervous because I'm like, oh, do I still love what I did? And then I go back and revisit it to reassure myself of like, okay, yeah, you did make the right call on certain things. I just get like, in the middle of the night, wake up thinking about it. So yeah, seeing these projects be finished, obviously my own house, and I'm doing a villa in Bali.
Oh,
So
how exciting.
that's a bit fun, something different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's what I'm excited for, those three things. Which are
Yeah. Oh, well, that sounds like a great 12 months. Busy, but great.
busy, yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me today, Kate. Now, we will link to all of your socials and things in our show notes for our community to reach out to you and connect if they've got any questions. I know you're really generous with your time on social media for other designers that have questions, so which is great. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. So nice to chat.
Thank you for listening to this design dialogue. I hope you have found it full of inspiration and helpful information to take into your design studio. If you like the podcast and want to hear more, consider sharing it or writing a review, as it helps us reach more people, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to unlock the power of effortless studio management and elevate your design business to new heights, please follow the links in our show notes to see how more time to design can help you build a better business. Have a great week, and I will see you for our next Design Dialogue.